Hello, 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 you guys, and welcome, welcome, welcome to another story time brought to you by ABC Read and ABC Learn, in which we are here to help you develop and nurture that love of reading in every child as well as every adult. How are you doing out there today? Evening, real early in the morning, real late at night, in the middle of the afternoon, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are around the planet. I hope that you all are doing absolutely amazing. And I hope that you all have read or you're planning to read for at least 30 minutes. All right, that's what's up. And of course, before we get started, I wanted to just remind my parents out there, all right, my parents, my caregivers, when you are sending your children to school, please, please do pop-up visits on your children. Sit in the classroom, listen to the stories that are being read to your children. If they are not being stories, if they're not stories being read to your children, ask why not. Ask why they are not doing read alouds, because they have done studies showing that when children are being read aloud to, that is one of the most single most important activities that you can do for your child's reading success. And I've said this plenty of times in my other videos, but for those of you, this might be your first time watching one of my videos, all right? And so I want to encourage you to please make sure you are doing that. Find out how they are incorporating that reading to your child. In addition to you asking your child, go and do pop-ups and find out what it is that they are reading to your children, all right? So with that being said, bam, here we go. Here's our story, all right, about this awesome lady that I've never heard of, okay? Never heard of her. She loved baseball. The Effa Manley Story. Effa Manley, written by Audrey Vernick, illustrated by Don Tate. And this lovely lady right here, this African-American woman, she did a lot for baseball, for the Negro Leagues in particular, all right? And it was so awesome reading about her. And I said, oh my goodness, I have to read this book to you guys, because I don't understand why I didn't learn about her, but guess what? Yes, I do, unfortunately. And so that's why I keep stressing again, making sure that you're up at these schools, finding out what your children are learning, and making sure you are finding out what it is that's being read to them or not being read to them. And here's the beautiful, beautiful title page. Love these illustrations. Don Tate, an awesome illustrator, by the way. Here's the dedication page right there. All right. When she was in first grade, Effa Brooks was called to the principal's office. "Young lady," the principal said, her voice hard and mean, "why must you play with those Negroes in the schoolyard?" Those Negroes were Effa's brothers and sisters. While Effa's skin was light, like her mother's, her siblings were dark, like their father. People with dark skin couldn't eat in certain restaurants or swim in public schools. Now it seemed they couldn't play with their sister either. That's just the way things are, people said. But it never made sense to Effa. As Effa grew up in Philadelphia in the early 1900s, America grew up too. Bold new music, jazz, blared, and folks stepped out in strange new shoes called sneakers. After high school, Effa moved to New York City, which seemed like the perfect place to live, the big life she dreamed of. Everyone there, everyone was talking about Babe Ruth, the Yankees' new slugging sensation. Effa went to games just to see his mighty swing. Nothing prepared her for the crackling energy of the 1932 World Series at Yankee Stadium. New York was beating the Chicago Cubs, and the crowd roared its approval. In that swirl of excitement, Effa met a kind, fun-loving man, Abe Manley. Abe adored baseball. He soon adored Effa too. He would take Effa out on the town in Harlem, a bustling black neighborhood in New York City. But something in Harlem really bothered Effa. Even in black communities, most businesses were owned by white people, and black people were not hired for most jobs. That's just the way things are, people said. But Effa knew it wasn't right. She organized the Citizens League for Fair Play, a group of community leaders. They urged Harlem's largest department store to hire black sales clerks. The owner said no. Nobody believed a group of black people could change a white businessman's mind. But the league fought anyway. For weeks, they marched in the street carrying signs that said, "Don't buy where you can't work." They convinced their neighbors to shop elsewhere. The store lost money, but still, no black sales clerks. The league kept marching. Finally, they won. Newspapers reported the boycott's success. Effa proudly placed the articles in her scrapbook. Before long, hundreds of black people were working in stores throughout Harlem. The world of baseball was headed for change too. Abe and Effa married in 1935 and started a team, the Brooklyn Eagles, in the new Negro National League that Abe had helped establish. Abe took the team south for spring training. But there was much to do in Brooklyn: organizing schedules, ordering equipment, arranging transportation. Effa had never done work like that before. But the more she did, the more she enjoyed it. By the time the Eagles moved to New Jersey in 1936, Effa was handling almost all the team's business. The city of Newark welcomed the Eagles. There was nothing more thrilling than a ball game at Rupert Field, the hot, sweet, and salty summer smells, the crack of the bat, people in their finest clothes standing, a few at first, willing the ball to keep going, then everyone at once, the thunderous cheer, the roar echoing blocks away. When first baseman Mule Suttles came to bat, the crowd chanted, "Kick, Mule!" hoping to see his high-stepping home run swing. Monty Irvin had one of the most magnificent arms that's ever been in baseball, Effa said. He was also an amazing shortstop. Irvin and power-hitting second baseman Larry Doby were one of the best double play combinations ever. Then there was Leon Day. He played every place on the field except catcher, Effa said. I don't mean he filled in. He played them. In broiling summer heat, Day would pitch the first game of a doubleheader, then trot out to play outfield for the second. When Effa attended league meetings, other owners protested. Baseball's no place for a woman. But over time, they came to respect her because she understood business and she understood baseball. Many owners only wanted to make money from their teams, but Effa cared about hers. She bought the best uniforms and a fancy, comfortable bus. She encouraged players to be active in the community and found them off-season jobs playing ball in Puerto Rico. Her players called her their mother hen. The Eagles had talent and skill, but for years, they were only second best. There was no beating the Kansas City Monarchs. In 1946, they got their chance. It all came down to one final Negro League World Series game. The best view was from the press box, but Effa sat in the stands where the seats vibrated from foot-stomping excitement. Newark had a one-run lead going into the final inning. With 2 outs, the Monarchs had 2 men on base. Effa couldn't watch. She heard the crushing thwack of bat hitting ball and waited one awful second. Was it? Say it wasn't. A home run? The Newark crowd was cheering. Effa peeked through her fingers. The first baseman had made the catch. The Eagles were world champions. It was Effa's proudest moment. The next year, Jackie Robinson joined the Brooklyn Dodgers, the first black player in the major leagues. So many people, not just baseball fans, were proud and hopeful about change and equality in America. Many black Americans became Dodgers fans that year. Unfortunately, this meant the Negro Leagues lost fans and also started losing their best players without even getting paid for them. Some major league owners didn't know Negro League players had contracts. Others didn't care. When Branch Rickey, general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, signed Don Newcombe in 1945, the Eagles lost an important player and received nothing in return. Effa was glad to see her players get their big break, but she believed all teams, not just white ones, should be paid for their players. She talked to the press and made people think about how unfair it was. Instead of saying, that's just the way things are, some people began to ask, but why? So when Cleveland Indians owner Bill Veeck became interested in Larry Doby, he was ready to negotiate. In July 1947, he paid the Eagles $15,000, and Doby became the first black player in the American League. Effa was losing another great player, but she wished him well. She told him, Doby, keep hitting the ball out the park. He did. After that, the major league team owners always paid Negro League teams for their players. But more and more players left. and soon Negro League ball came to an end. In 1952, Abe became ill and died. Effa lost her best friend, business partner, and truest love all at once. She often looked at her scrapbook to remind her of good times. As she browsed those pages, something kept nagging at her. The history of the Negro Leagues was slipping away. That's just the way things are, people said. But it broke Effa's heart. In the 1970s, she began a letter writing campaign to convince the National Baseball Hall of Fame to acknowledge the best Negro League players. The Hall had honored some who had also played in the majors, such as Jackie Robinson in 1962, but none who had played their entire career in the Negro Leagues. When the Hall appointed a committee to consider honoring Negro League stars, Effa was thrilled. Between 1971 and 1977, the committee voted to induct 9 Negro League players, including former Eagle star Monte Irvin. Then it announced it had completed its work. Effa was outraged. She could name dozens more who deserved the honor, especially 2 Eagles, slugger Mule Suttles and Biz Mackey, who had managed the 1946 championship team. She continued writing to the Hall until she died in 1981. The Hall wasn't finished with Negro League players after all. Over the years, more of Effa's favorites were inducted, but many, including Suttles and Mackey, were not. It wasn't right. It was just the way things were until 2006. On July 30th, Suttles and Mackey and 10 other Negro League players were finally inducted into the Hall of Fame. Effa would have been so proud. Something else happened that day. Something amazing. Effa was inducted along with them. In baseball's long history, Effa Manley was the first woman ever to be so honored. She was recognized for all she did for her players, for her civil rights work, and for her getting the major leagues to treat Negro League teams with respect. On Effa's gravestone, it says, she loved baseball. In 2006, baseball proved it loved her back. The end. Ooh, that was a lot of information that I learned. I never heard of her before. And I was so happy to be able to have read that book to you all. I learned a lot. And I know one of the things that I thought about when I read the story is that number one, as Black people, it is okay to have your own league. It is okay. And you do not have to wait for anybody to acknowledge you. And of course, that goes for any and everyone, but I'm speaking in particular to Black people because this is something that we're still dealing with today. The whole notion of trying to be accepted. And this is something that we teach our children, right? We teach our children that you don't have to wait for someone to accept you or validate you. You do that for yourself. Your parents do that. They build you up and they tell you that you are great, you are worthy, you are to be respected. You don't have to wait for somebody else to tell you that. And that is one of the things that I really missed about learning about the Negro Leagues. It's because this was a baseball team that had African American players who were validating themselves and saying, hey, we already are not allowed to play with anyone else, so we're going to make our own teams. And also, when Effa said, when she noticed in Harlem that there were all of these businesses where Black people had to go shop, but they did not own them, and they for sure was not working there. So, again, another lesson, understanding that we must own our own businesses. And we must validate ourselves and not wait for anybody else to do that for us. So with that being said, my friends, I hope you all enjoyed that story. And I hope that you all please remember to like, subscribe, and share our videos. And hit that notification button so that you are notified every time we upload a new story. So you all take care and remember to please, please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. Happy reading, family.